Hello and welcome to another episode of Page Burners. We're working our way through the Malazan books by both authors Stephen Erikson and Ian Esselmont in publication order. We're currently on House of Chains. We read these books 100 pages ish every week from the longest edition of the book that we can find published in English. Um, Today's discussion is chapters, 13 through 16. Did I get that right? Yes. And next week, we're going to be discussing the next 3 chapters. So we'll go up to the end of chapter 19 for next week's discussion. We're a couple of books away from meeting an Esselmont book, but we are making our way there slowly but surely. With me, of course, we have the usual group of friends. Everybody will introduce themselves and tell us what they're most interested in discussing this week from the chapters that we read. For myself, I think it's Onrak's little painting in the cave, or Karsa's forging of the sword. One of those. Carl, do you want to continue?
Yeah, I'm Carl. I am a second-time reader of the whole series, and I think I'm most excited to discuss. There was a lot of good stuff in these chapters, but I guess I'll have to go with my man Lorik, who we have increasing confirmation that. Well, first of all, we know his backstory, like the broad strokes of it now, but second of all, he rocks, and that's all. Steve.
Enough.
Yeah, I'm Steve from Page Chewing. It's my second time reading House of Chains. And, well, first, we just kind of mentioned this before we hit record, but Fellison Younger cannot catch a break. Anybody named Fellison is kind of screwed. And other than that, I was wondering, reading this book again, whether or not it's good to have an antagonist and protagonist, because it seems like both sides are, you can find reasons to dislike them or to disagree, or to have different motivations. So I wonder, is that something that is, as a reader, you require to have clear black and white? And Shannon.
Yeah, my name's Shannon, and I think Carl stole mine with Lorik, so I'll go with how about Parsa running into Mappo in a car. I thought
That
that
was
was
good
an
stuff.
interesting convergence, as Mappo called it.
This was a very dense set of chapters. I don't know how we'll get through all of it. I think we just have to make some sacrifices today.
Mm.
But yeah, I think Steve's topic might be a good place to start today's discussion, though, and not least because we are in
Woohoo.
danger of losing Steve before we get to it if we start with anything else.
I know your little plan.
But yeah, Steve, do you want to elaborate on what you said and what from these chapters maybe prompted those thoughts?
Yeah, I think the soldiers starting to question or have doubts over what they're fighting for. That's always been fascinating to me. Is why are we doing this? And how do you keep an army motivated? How do you keep people willing to put their lives on the line and kill other people for the cause? And it seems like both sides have. One side is more of a belief, a spiritual, kind of, how else you describe it. One side is more belief, and the other side is more tactical and reasoned, and there's a structure behind it. And I think you can go throughout history and find conflicts like this. I mean, find that now, but both sides, you can find reasons to dislike them or to disagree or to not think that they are quote unquote good. So I just think it's interesting is I think some people need someone to root for, somebody who's obviously good and who obviously has good intentions and is 100% doing the right thing all the time. So I just wondered if that's something that you all require, to have someone to root for and root against. You're reading this chunker of a book, so I'm guessing no, but
Rereading more specifically.
I
Yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead, Carl.
I I don't think that I need someone to root for. Uh, Root against, actually, I maybe feel is more important, where I feel like that there's something, I do feel like a sense of, like, justice or comeuppance. I mean, I think it's just based in drama that, like, somebody's gotta cause problems, and typically your instinct is to want that person to be, at the very least, confronted for the problems they're causing. In terms of, like, good guys, I mean, I don't know. A lot of stories, it isn't, yeah, so cut and dry.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say probably the vast majority of stories are pretty cut and dry, but certainly in the fantasy genre. At the same time, I I do feel that in this book, I do have people that I root for and people I root against. Like for example, Bidithal, like is very intentionally and successfully evokes really strong negative feelings inside me and inside
Mhm.
most readers, I imagine, and I absolutely read wanting to see him get his comeuppance. I, at the same time,
Yep.
have characters I feel pretty strongly about in supporting, whether it be, uh, I mean, honestly, I've always been a Fellison fan, whether it is elder or younger. Heboric, Fiddler Strings, as he's known. Um, but I think that the middle ground, the gray area that this series is really excellent about exploring is that so often the people who are in kind of the antagonists or the protagonists for that matter, they don't exist in the black and white, right? They have their own motivations and you can understand them. And like
Mhm.
Shaik is a like a kind of classic antagonistic character, but we have a lot of sympathy for her, or we have a lot of reasons to sympathize with her. And our noblest heroes are often soldiers in the Malazian military, but they're part of an imperialist conquering or else, subjugation force. And, this goes back to the first book. And so I think that's very interesting. And then on top of that, you have characters like Karsa, who have done so many despicable things and are arrogant and suck in so many different ways. But at the same time, I am deeply fascinated by him. I love Karsa Orla. I love reading about him. I don't love him like as a moral figure to idolize, but he's one of my favorite characters in the series. And I actually have an instinctive dislike of barbarian characters because I find they
Hmm.
tend to be so one note. And Karsa to me is such a rich character, and the thematic depth that he adds to the story, as well as the emotional depth and the way he challenges me. I mean, I guess that's something that I appreciate is I like when stories challenge me and make me question my own beliefs and my own view of the world. And Karsa is one of those characters that really makes me grapple with how I view things.
Yeah. I'm thinking I wondered, like, in the root for category, do we strictly need characters, or do we need sort of moral principles or philosophies to think about or latch on to that we um, agree with or want to grapple with? Um, because in right now there's a lot of characters I'm latching onto and love deeply and whatnot, but the first time through the series were probably very few characters that I started to like or like get attached to. I enjoyed following all of them. They were all great, but it wasn't like I wasn't cheering when I saw any of them on the page like I do now. And whenever we have a fiddler scene or anything. I'm trying to think what made me love the series then, and I think it's the deep exploration of all the topics and themes that it touches upon, and like that's what keeps my enjoyment, like not like rooting for one way or the other. So I'm wondering if that is also a possible addition to the conversation of what you must root for when you read a story.
I think that's an interesting idea of like the thematic kind of even the ideological or moral side of things that you because when we're rooting for characters, that's often what we're rooting for is the beliefs that they uphold, you
Hmm.
know, or that we project onto them, right? And so sometimes when it's messier than that, it is just the larger beliefs themselves that we hold on to, and that we want to see prevail. At the same time, I think you're touching on something, Barsha, that it gets to, like, the larger question of, like, why people read in general. Like, some people don't really want to deal with messy feelings when they read, and that's okay. Do I wish they would? Sure, but, like, I'm not gonna force they're an individual human being. They have the right to read whatever they wanna read and to feel however they feel about it. Uh, and so some people do, like Steve said, want kind of the black and white moral, storytelling. But there's so much middle ground, I think, in so many different ways. Like you said, Barsha, that we can be attached to a story and engaged with a story. My only comment pushing back against what you said is I guarantee if it was just the themes keeping you, you would be reading like some other book, like an essay. You know what I mean? That there is something else adding on to that, and your or on your first read through that helps carry you through. Whether it's just how like freaking epic the series is, or you know,
Oh
even if
yeah,
you didn't love the characters, yeah.
there's definitely a lot more than just the themes. It's the themes are, I think, maybe 70% of the enjoyment, but like even that didn't start until say book three. Um, I think you are right. Like the size of this world, and I think the scale of everything that happens, and all the different. I think world building may be the other side of it, and just like trying to
Mhm.
figure out where this goes. It's an interesting puzzle ish. There's a lot keeping me. Like I don't want to make it seem like it's just the themes. It's definitely not that. It's just characters weren't. I didn't latch on to any of them the way I would. Like I just finished Pride and Prejudice, for instance, as like a I don't know a complete on the other side comparison. And if you ask me why I love that book, I'll probably say everything I love about several characters. Same with say The Cave. I think that I finished recently. The Book Thief. There's there are very much lovable characters in this. I'm not saying there aren't, but it just took me a long time to get there with this series. I was more latching on to other things, and characters were very much secondary. And again, that's not a critique. Like I don't want this to seem. I know sometimes Erikson gets flack for not writing characters well. I don't agree with that at all. It's just that's not what kept me with the series, I
I
think.
I I think where people criticize Erickson and say he's not good at writing characters, I mean, they can feel however they want to about it, but I I think they experienced the same thing you experienced, and that I certainly, to some degree, some books more than others experienced. Like, for example, the sidebar, when Ikariam appeared in the set of chapters the first time I read it, I like might as well have cheered. And Mappo, I love those characters so much. I adore them. Like the first time they were introduced in Dead House, they practically carried me through Dead House Gates. But back to the topic you were saying, that like I think people misdiagnose that it's not that Erickson isn't good at writing characters. It's that he writes so many and they're so diffuse that it's harder to attach yourselves to them. You're not as focused on any individual character. I mean, this is a common critique you see of any story that hops around POVs a lot is people find it harder to kind of lock into the worldview. This is why first person narration, single narrator, first person narration is so popular, especially in YA, where it's a lot easier to make that emotional connection when you're entirely focused on one POV. It's just a psychological thing. I think it's an aspect of craft that I don't think a lot of people like fully reckon with when they're processing their emotions around a book.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, there are characters, just to like close that out, there were many characters that I became deeply interested in, but none that I became super fond of, or like very few that I became super fond of. And I'm learning that I became fond of them whenever I cheer for when they are back now on my reading. So, um, anyway, moving
What?
on.
No,
Yeah.
actually, hold up, because I'm curious what thoughts Shannon and Steve have about
Oh, yeah.
this.
Sorry. Mhm.
Well, I
Sh-
mean, I was just gonna say, I've said before, with Malazan, world building is probably the biggest thing that draws me. Like, I just think Erikson's way of approaching this world as like an archaeologist is so unique, and he's created just one of the most just deep, rich worlds, fantasy worlds I've ever seen. As far as the characters, it does help me to root for characters, but I think, like I can root for people that aren't necessarily, black or white, good or bad. Um, I mean, in this book, I mean, Karsus is probably a good example. I find myself root for him, and he starts off the book horrible. But I'm enjoying the ride we're on, where we see even now he's growing, he's changing, he's trying to maybe be somebody a little bit different. Um, and then this book does have one of the villains. There's just probably the most despicable villains of the whole series in Bidethal. Um, so back to you, Steve.
Yeah, I actually hadn't heard that people weren't fans of Erickson's character work. I haven't heard that. I mostly hear that it's confusing and that's why people don't continue.
yeah, that too.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
That's
but
definitely the most common
yeah,
criticism. Yeah.
yeah, it's the most that that's the only reason I've heard. But as far as his character, I think it's because there's so many of them that we don't spend a fair amount of time with a group or individual characters for too long, except for maybe a few. But the few that we do spend time with, I think are some of the most memorable fantasy characters I can think of that I've read. I mean, like Fellison and Karsa come to mind. Whiskey Jack. I just don't think I think what that may come from us not just focusing on a certain group or certain characters for extended periods of time. That's maybe where it comes from. But like Shannon said, I think the world building and the themes that are, the subtext with the books are this thought provoking, and it leaves you a lot to think about after you're done reading. Is what
Mhm.
brings me back to it.
Before we move on, and I'll let you kind of lead the discussion in a second, Barsha. I just want to throw out a take, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think, I mean, this is way in the future, but like after Erikson is dead, I think this series will live past him, and I think one of the most studied and most talked about things, because I think his work will be studied. I imagine already is being in some university somewhere in the world. Uh, Karsa Orlong will be among like the top things people study. Like not even getting into the sequel trilogy, I just think he is genuinely such a rich and fascinating and emotionally, psychologically, thematically complex character that to me he like you have other characters who fans love like Animander Rake or Fiddler, what have you, and I think there are a lot that have different um, uh, things that attract you to them. But to me, Karsa Orlong is very possibly one of, if not the most complex and interesting characters Erikson writes. And part of what is so interesting about him is exactly that we are introduced to him in the most horrible way you can imagine being introduced to a character. And it boggles the mind that Erikson makes so many of his readers root for him anyway. And there are certain, like, obvious things you can point to that, like, well, he does start to grow and change, and, like, we like that, but, like, he still remains, like, pretty shitty in a lot of ways, you know? Like, he's very abrasive, he's not very, like, generous and kind, like, he helps some people randomly, but, like, he's very confrontational, he has really negative views of civilization, and I think most people generally would say that they're pro-civilization, and I I mean, he's kind of the barbarian, right? In a way that's like, I don't know if it's just like the power fantasy, but even then, I think there's so much you can explore there about what it is about Karsa that works, because clearly there is a lot there that works very well, and it is unlike so many characters I've read. Like, even other barbarians I've read, I'm not gonna get into details, but, like, Logan Ninefingers in First Law and, like, different characters like that, like, they're not as complex or subversive as Karsa is. Usually, their issues are relatively more straightforward.
Would you agree that he has sort of an underlying sense of justice and honor, however misguided it may seem at
Yes.
first? And I think at least for me, that's probably what helps. uh,
No, that's a
like
great point.
him, yeah, despite everything he says and does.
He has a
Like,
code.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's
like his
flexible, you
that
know?
too. Yeah.
It's like so much of what drives, like, he has this sense of justice, but so much of it for him is intuitive. He is an
Yes.
active character. He is so aggressively active, and I guess that's part of what's attractive about him is he does not wait to react. He is constantly driving things forward. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Varsha.
No, that's a great point. I and when his default reaction stopped being I'm going to kill this person because I don't like what they said and started processing what they were saying, I think he had some really deep insights, like uh not quite the beginning of our discussion section, but in the Karsa only chapter that we have in these chapters that we read today, at some point he's contemplating the nature of the rebellion. And I think he's passing through the lands that I guess the Malazans haven't touched and aren't really in uprising. Basically, the lands that the rebellion is representing, but seemingly don't have anything to do with the rebellion right now. Like this, neither the Malazans or the rebels have much of a say. I think at least that's how I read it. But at that point, he's thinking that uh, there are some evils that you can protest against that too much power can lead to, but those aren't the things that are in contention in the rebellion. It's mostly who has power. And I think you and I were talking about this, Carl, in a previous discussion, where like, what is the root cause of this rebellion? And it seems at the face of it like a bit of a holy war, except it's not. It's everybody. It's the nest of vipers that's rooting, that's trying for to be the man in charge. Bidithal with his own agenda, Korbolodum with his own thing, and Shaik, who seems to be aware of all of these and whatever the heck she's she's up to, um, which I think must necessarily also include the goddess. But um, what's my point? Yeah, so he comes to this conclusion that there is like this just it, like this is what civilization seems to be, a big power struggle, right? And that's one of his condemnations of civilization. Um so yeah, the man goes deep when he's not swinging his sword. So it's hard not to like him.
What okay, and this is just giving me an idea as you're talking, like,
Mhm.
it's helping
It's
me
fine. We have a whole
ponder
Karsa
this.
chapter we can consider this
Yeah, no,
part of
I
the
mean, this
main
is
discussion.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, Karsa, everything he doesn't like about civilization are traits you could ascribe to him as well.
Mm,
Like, his existence is driven by a power struggle, and at least where he is right now, I should say, is driven by that power struggle, and I think Erikson is completely aware of it. I don't believe this is one of those things that it was just kind of instinctual and was, like, in his subconscious. I would be curious to talk to him about it. But in my mind, Karsa, despite being the barbarian in his beliefs and how he goes through the world, is like the embodiment of his critiques of civilization. And it's like the same critiques are like his worst traits. And I think that is so interesting. I mean, so often, human beings in real life and characters in stories, the most interesting ones are like those who, well, they project their flaws, right? They project
mm,
their own insecurities, the things they don't like about themselves on others. Like, this is a common, it's basically like, uh, at the point where I don't even know, what's the term I'm looking for? Not like an idiom, but like it's like it's just like commonly like known at this point. It's like pop culture almost, pop psychology, and Karsa embodies that in such a unique way. because he doesn't attack. I mean, he does attack a lot of individuals, but like so much of his character is driven by this like existential war with the idea of civilization. And so much of what he hates about civilization, I'd have to like really read closely for this, maybe all of it, is like are things that he himself acts upon, those same drives.
Can you give more examples? Maybe like I guess let's start with the power struggle bit. Is it his struggle with like who's in control between him and the
Yes.
gods?
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. The gods, I think even Shaik, like, so far as he served Shaik, it was like, if you just read Deadhouse Gates, you would think he was an extremely loyal servant. But
uh-huh.
w all of it is recontextualized in House of Chains, and we understand that he was never actually that loyal to Shaik. And even Felisin as Shaik misinterprets his emotions and feelings about it as, "Oh, he was loyal to the dead woman, and he's not loyal to me because I'm not her." But that's not really what's going on in Karsa's head that we see. I mean, he doesn't do a lot of introspection. A lot of his actions are we have to interpret his actions. In that way, he's a classic Erikson character, a lot like Tavor, who I think is another one of the characters that will like go down famously for Erikson to embody his strengths. Um, and so much of his existence is a power struggle. At least again at this current point in the story, he is driven by constantly trying to create his own agency and to break his own chains, and he blames civilization for that. But often these are, we see quite literally, chains that he has put around himself, by through his own actions. And he's constantly like, the you have the trope of like in a lot of action movies of like the alpha wolf character, which is by the way based on bad science that was like debunked decades ago, the alpha wolf idea. But the notion of that like a macho dude who's trying to be like the top dog. Cars is that, but in a more complex way, where it's like it's driven by so much of how he understands himself and the world and his relationship with the world. And the struggle of like man against man or like man against nature, and how to him his instincts are to always find a way to like come out on top. If he ever feels insecure and trapped, he lashes out. And not all the characters do that the same way. I'm not saying that like you don't see power struggles among a lot of the characters. Of course you do. Like the rebellion is full of them. But I think Karsa as an individual makes a point of going through life where, I mean, you even see it in his interaction with Ikariam, where he basically just on pure instincts decides that they have to fight.
Hmm.
And you can blame it on the culture he comes from or any number of things. But the reality is that like that is how he goes through life, is trying to assert himself upon everyone and everything around him, which is the very same thing that he blames like civilization of doing. And he says civilization has done to him even.
So I think I'm trying to see if this is right, but I think Karsa's power struggle is to a great extent of a struggle for power over himself. Um,
Absolutely. I agree. I think that's the emotional journey he's going on. I think that's the psychological. That's the end point of everything I'm saying here, is that he needs to stop projecting. Exactly. Yes. I'm sorry.
mhm.
I interrupted again. But yes, please.
No, I was going to counter that the people struggling for power in Shaik's camp, for instance, or civilization-driven power struggles, are usually for power over others, which I think is a very significant difference. So maybe I don't know yet if I have enough data for the Karsa embodying civilization comparison. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. But in as much as it is true, I think maybe there are redeeming qualities to those elements that maybe make Karsa more bearable than, say, the negatives of civilization that he seems to hate. I don't know if that sentence made sense, but do you get what
No,
I'm
I
saying?
I I
Yeah.
I I agree with that. And I should be clear that I don't think I maybe am over like flattening the discussion of him a bit to make a point, using hyperbole a bit. You know, the richness of his I think he's such an endlessly complex character that I don't think that this wholly describes him. However, I think it is not a coincidence that many of like the issues, the thematic, the philosophical ideas he promotes are also reflective of his own. He doesn't view it this way because again, he's not introspective, but I think his own issues with himself and how he acts upon the world, and that he's been forced to confront that ever since um, whatever the lake town, Silver Lake.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it? We'll call it that. Yeah. Yeah, that's very
Yes.
interesting. I think we have to I will certainly be looking for that when I read more Karsa along as we go. Sorry, Shannon, were you saying something?
No, I was just saying yes. It's over. Like,
Okay. Cool. Um, so do you wanna wrap up the discussion of the Karsa chapter while we're here, even though it's not the first one? Let's
yeah.
do it. Yeah, since
Yeah, let's do it, Shannon.
yeah, I guess yeah, it's Shannon's topic, right? With the Icarium.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. So, what did you like about that? I thought it was great, but what did you like about it?
Uh, Similarly, I thought it was great. So yeah, I the thing that really resonated with me was Mappo talking about how he was like he said, you're cursed, and this other guy's cursed, and sometimes these curses come together in these convergences of power. Um, and so yeah, I just kind of wanted to discuss that. Like they, so what? Why was it immediately a fight with Zakarian? Like I was kind of like, what was that about? Like immediately it was just Zakarian's ready to fight him.
Well, for Ikarian, we're given the. So I missed this on my first read through, and so this was a new thing I caught on to. But Mappo at least speculates that the Ikarium hates Karsa instinctively. Well, not even instinctively, just immediately, because Karsa is wearing the fur of a soul taken friend of Ikarium's. I forget the name of the guy, but it's a bear,
A
right?
bear,
That
The
yeah.
Karsa is
bear.
wearing. Yeah. And so that's the reason he gives. And Karsa is always down to fight and is,
Yeah.
again, I feel has to assert himself on other people. I think to push against something I was saying is like clearly Karsa doesn't try to enslave people, which is one of his big criticisms of civilization. Um, I do think he tries to dominate them, however.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I love Mappo. He's such a good dude. And doing
Okay.
sucker punching Karsa, hysterical.
Mm,
After right after Icarium broke his sword, which hasn't
That's
happened
so
yeah,
before.
true.
Like that
but
wooden
he did.
sword held up against a lot. Sorry, go ahead, Shannon.
Well, he got the sword broke, but he was. I mean, he did knock out Akarium too. I mean, I thought that was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, he
Absolutely.
did.
Hmm.
Yeah, with one
Oh,
punch.
Yeah, just one because he breaks the sword and then he punches Akarium and just knocks him out, and then that's when Mappo sucker punches him.
I think it's worth
oh,
saying that we should probably interpret that as Karsa's getting stronger in certain distinct ways. I won't say more details,
I
but
mean, yeah.
what? But Icarium has to kind of go berserk before he destroys entire civilizations, right? So he hasn't gotten there. I thought Mapo punched him so that Icarium doesn't get
So
to
you're,
that point.
so you're saying Akarium is kind of like he's like the Hulk, like except he is strong. He's strong, but like when he really gets out
Mhm.
of control, the rage is when he gets really really strong.
I thought so.
Uh
I don't. I mean, if you ask me why I think that, I wouldn't be able to point to any specific parts of the text, but that's just the impression I got.
I mean, I would say
certainly.
he's really strong at baseline, but I mean, I mean, what are you gonna say, Carl?
I was just going to say, I do think that there clearly is like a turning point for him where he becomes the like destroyer of civilizations. And I certainly read it as being based around his wrath, as being a kind of Hulk
Hmm.
situation, but I don't know. I mean, clearly something triggers him where he becomes unstoppable, or at least that's what we're told. I mean, we haven't seen it at this point. Him actually going full, destroying a whole city mode.
Yeah. So Mappo could have been knocking out Karsa before Akarian could get to that point.
Yeah, that's what I thought he did. I didn't realize that he'd punched Ikariam out, so maybe I just misread that scene. But I thought Mappo was
Um,
protecting, well, both of them and maybe the nearby cities. Um,
No, I think you're right. I think he
no,
did.
I think he
I
was. Yeah, I agree. Because Akarian was still going to wake up at some point.
exactly. I
And
think the
it,
fear is that Akarium wakes up soon after, and Karsa's right there, and is still ready to fight, and Ikarium goes Hulk mode.
yes. Yeah. I really love the lead up to that too with the wolf. Well, first with Beroth and Dalem telling Karsa just how to deal with the wolf so that,
Mhm.
they don't kill him. And then it turns out the wolves don't want to fight. They're terrified already. And they're
Mhm.
terrified of a legacy of if they don't warn him that he shouldn't fight Ikarium. It's like it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad for everybody. Please don't do it. just remember to tell them that I warned you against it.
Yeah.
I love that. And this was, I think this was one of the first divers we had met in Dead House Gates, right? With
I'm pretty sure he was in Deadhouse
yeah.
Gates.
And was it
Um,
What is he? I don't think so. I don't think this is Rylanderus, who was a coyote. Like he was like a were coyote for a long time, or were jackal. Excuse me, he was a were
mm,
jackal, and now he's not described as several jackals, but I think the implication is Karsa misidentifies him and thinks he's like wolves or something, but he's actually like a pack of jackals. Like I think this is
uh
a recent development because Mappo even comments on that he's, oh wow, he's like gotten stronger. He's a divers now instead of a soul taken.
oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah, I thought this was one of
um,
those. Mhm.
yeah, it was new that he was a diverse, but did we not see him as a soul taken? Yeah, he was in Deadhouse Gates.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We saw him as a soul taken. I just didn't think we saw
Yeah.
him as a divers then. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
all I was saying.
Uh,
Oh, got it. Okay,
well,
yeah.
no, actually, here I'm looking at the wiki. I mean, it says he appears as a group of 6 desert wolves, and this was in Deadhouse Gates.
Okay, I'm wrong. Yeah, that's huh. When does he
Okay,
appear?
but they did talk like that was new, so I don't know. But yeah, they show up in at the beginning of the book and they talk to Mappo.
Yeah, he's 20 wolves now. So Mappa was talking about how powerful he's gotten since they last
Oh,
met, which was
okay.
6.
Yeah, so he was 6 in this one, 20 now.
Yeah.
True.
Um.
Okay.
So what was I saying? Yeah, I think that was one of our first introductions to Ikarium's power. I think, if I remember correctly. But um, anyway, that whole scene was a lot of fun. So then Karsa keeps going. Uh, Beroth and Dilum tell him there's this little warren thing you can use to go faster to get to the Jag Odan where he's going to get a horse. And
Uh-huh.
in his time through that warren, he sees that an army has passed there.
So that
And
was so
mhm,
that was the Ice Warren, right? They go because they find that tower there.
yes, and Jagged lying under a bunch of rocks because
Yeah.
they couldn't kill her, so they just trapped her there.
Mhm.
And Karsa throws the stone away, and then she says, "Oh, I've that that's an interesting skill. Just ignorance is what gives you strength."
That was a good line. I like that.
so, so
all the
anyway,
all the
yeah,
jacket are the best. They're my favorite of
yes,
all the races in Erikson's. Like they just get such good dialogue. You instantly love them. Anytime there's a jacket on screen, you know you're about to have a good time.
yes. That was absolutely hilarious. So anyway, he saves her or he helps her escape.
Oh,
And
and we also found out it was the the broken, the Templar gods were the ones that went after her and failed
Mm.
in their job,
That's
and
right.
that's when they were broken.
But we don't know how long ago, right? Or at least it must have been.
Well, it would have been
Oh,
long, long ago.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so this is what got them cut off from the ritual and their
Hmm.
bones spread around where the tableau are. So, yeah, okay, it has to be
Yeah,
millennia ago, I think. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So basically, this seems to be a sort of time, like a pocket of time, or like where time moves slower than the realm that we are in, which is interesting. We were talking about world building and the cool stuff that keeps you reading
yeah.
in this series. This has to be one of them, right?
Hmm.
Um, so anyway, Karsa emerges from that warren and continues on his way to looking for a horse, but first stops at a cave, which has a lot of flint weapons. And we are told then that this is where his gods were driving him to come. And we
You
find out
you
later.
also skip very briefly. You skip the fact that there is the heavy implication that the Jagged woman seduces Karsa or
Yes.
bullies him into sleeping with her.
Oh,
I
really?
love that he is like it is hysterical to me that Karsa, this classic barbarian character, has absolutely or seems to express no interest whatsoever in having sex with her, and she's like, no, but like we should totally do it though, and then the implication at the end of the season is they do in fact, and Karsa is like sore afterwards. It's pretty legendary.
I missed all of that. I didn't skip it. I missed it. What? Did I
It's a lot of
miss reading a
subtext.
page?
It's innuendo. She gives a
Okay.
lot of innuendo where she's like, I'll reward you. I'll give you any reward you want. And he's like, I want information. She's like, well, I'll give you information, but I'll also give you other things if you want them. And he's like, no, information is okay. And she's like, okay, but like I have needs too. And he kind of like looks at her like I forget the exact word they use. Like he like glowers at her or something, and the scene definitely ends with the implication, and then after the start of the next scene, that they did in fact get it on.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
missed all of that.
I
Definitely
miss
missed
that
it.
too.
Okay. Cool. Very interesting. Now, so back to the caves, which we know from Onrak telling Trull this, that if the seven find their original weapons, then they can be, I guess, reformed in some way. Like they'll be less broken than they are now. Was the implication that they'll no longer be bound by the ritual and they'll be Imas again as opposed to
Hmm.
Pilanimas, or just that they'll be less in pieces all around?
Oh, that's an interesting point. I didn't even think about that. I just thought they'd be powerful, be more powerful. It's like a
Hmm.
symbolic thing, but you may be right. It may be the symbolism is that it would return them to life.
Hmm.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
I don't
And they are cut
remember,
off from the
honestly.
ritual, so
Yeah.
who knows? So then, in one of the coolest sword forging scenes ever,
Hell
Karsa
yeah.
builds himself a giant flint sword. It's as tall as he is, which is quite tall, while ignoring all the advice, which, will come with absolutely no, what's the word I'm looking for? Damn it. Uh, Strings. That's the Their advice will come with absolutely no strings, but Karsa happily chooses to ignore all of it, and they want to make him the eighth god. Um, and Karsa's like, no thanks. I'm Tablor. I'm not one of you. I don't want to be a god. And also because it would bind him to whoever they serve, which I think we can be fairly certain is the crippled god at this
They
point.
explicitly say it. I mean, they don't say the
Okay.
crippled god, but they say Karsa would become the knight of the House of Chains.
Oh, right. Yeah, then it has to be the house of the crippled god. But and he doesn't want that, which, yeah. So going back to that question we were discussing about power struggles and the need to be in power and manipulate everything around, like this, I think is a great example of civilization versus Karsa, where like I think most people would at least be tempted more than he seems to be, and he's not. Like, nope, I'm having none of that. I don't want to be bound to any entity other than myself.
I yeah, I think for slight clarity too, I think this will help clarify what I was saying earlier, is that that will to power, as Nietzsche might call it, I feel is the same thing he accuses, like, civilization of those endless power struggles. He is caught up in them himself and driven so deeply to not be subordinate to anyone, which is the same sort of instinct that he identifies in civilization. And I don't think he's self-aware. Well, he's not. He's not a self-aware character at all. He's not introspective at all. He thinks about things, but he doesn't really think about himself or his actions. He just acts.
Yes, that I agree. And
We lost Shannon,
yeah,
but we will power on. I'm glad we got to talk about Carsa with him and
yes, that
Akarian and
was fun.
Mappo.
And oh yeah, and that was his topic. So good, we covered that. That's great. Was there anything else about the sword? Okay, just to close out that thing about the sword forging scene, there was this part where, well, first of all, there were so many cool things about it. First, that Beirut Guild sort of guided his way through the cut in the stone so that he got a clean cut out of it, and then as it was falling, Karsa leaped down. That was such a cool description, and then I caught it before it could break, and then in the catching of it, it cut his hand, and the blood from that cut helped, I guess, harden it more. And and then he says, "Oh, how clever, Barrow, to drink my blood." That was slightly disturbing of a ghost drinking his blood. That image, but I think overall, brilliant scene. I loved it. And I loved how descriptive it was, and that image of Karsa leaping down to grab the piece of stone.
Don't forget the
Fantastic.
detail
Yes.
too. His buddies, his clansmen, are become one with the sword. They commit themselves, their eternity,
Mm,
seemingly, to the sword,
that's right.
which I always love. I mean,
Yeah,
I love the fantasy trope of the hero forging their own weapon. I also love the fantasy trope of souls, in a weapon, like making the weapon a living thing. It kicks ass.
I love it. Yes, I agree. I love that detail. And the conversation they had before that, where Karsa was telling them, well, you cannot go to an afterlife with Hood now, like you're basically mine after this. But he knows he has their consent, and they want to.
Lo Low key, kind of civilization like of him.
Mm.
Kind of
Agreed.
hypocritical,
No
Karsa.
arguments there.
True.
So, um, yeah. Anyway, cool chapter, cool scenes. Loved all of it. And
Steve,
we
what
can.
are we haven't heard from you about Karsa. What are your thoughts on all this chapter? And
I love Karsa. He's probably one of my favorite characters in the. Well, I've only read up to book 5, but he's my favorite character. He was only around for a book that as of where I stopped last time. I think that's because of his he's just like stubborn. He's hilarious. He's a killer. He's everything put into one.
he's just so entertaining, right?
Yeah,
Like just on a base level, like he's very entertaining.
he's like a goof.
To, he is.
He's this
He
dangerous, character too.
he at times does almost feel like a cartoon character. Like he has his moment. Like he's like way more complex than that deserves, but he has moments where he just acts exactly like you said, just like a goof, a buffoon, and is just hysterical, getting into shenanigans. It's oh,
Too many words.
too
Too many
many words.
words.
Exactly. Yes.
That was his complaint against Icarium too. Okay. So, chapter 13, shall we get back to Felicin? And I think it pretty much
Rewind.
starts with Felicin younger and then um, the Lorik scene with the returned familiar. So let's. Do you want to talk about Lorik? Then we'll talk about what happened to Felicin.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, it's first the Lorik stuff ties into the Felicin stuff. So
Oh,
maybe that'll be the transition point.
yeah.
Let's just start with just Lorik. So it's not spelled out for us, but like if you're really like locked in and paying attention, you can very kind of clearly piece together his backstory in broad strokes here, and you get a much better idea of who he is. So we don't have to dance around this anymore. He is at least partly Theosin. He certainly feels kinship with that civilization. His dad was Osric, and who is missing, and who had been impersonated by his familiar. It was not the crippled god, or at least it does not appear to be. It was his familiar, and the Tice, or not the Tice, the Talani Mass mistook it apparently for an agent of the crippled god and decided to kill it, and that is why the familiar appears out of nowhere, bleeding, and dies in his arms. And it is described in a very weird way. I can't imagine it. It has like red hair, and I'm afraid if it's described as like ape-like, but also I don't know. But it's dope. It's sad. Lorik is just seems like a good dude. You know, anyone who has a pet, thumbs up. That's instant. You instantly win some of my affection that way. And I think it also helps that we have been exposed now to several Tysliosin, and they seem like self-righteous dinguses. I mean, absolute, like, very unpleasant people. Like, not people you would want to interact with. And Lorik, on the other hand, while he has a sense of righteousness, he seems like much more grounded, much more compassionate, and he's still playing his political games. You know, I don't know that, like, many of the characters you could trust him very much, but at the same time, he does have a code, and he isn't, you know, a religious fanatic. Which I guess it's interesting to me to briefly circle back to what you Varsha had mentioned that we had talked about earlier, and that you kind of expounded upon earlier, that the rebellion, the people leading it at least, are so secular relatively. Bidithal is maybe the most, like, I do believe Bidithal is a true believer, and it almost feels too cynical to me that it is driven so entirely by secular, like, materialist politics, when I feel that, like, I don't know, like, I've this is gonna go back to, like, talking about the Crusades, which, you know, I would bring up sometimes when we were reading the Second Apocalypse, but, like, when you read, like, sources, like, like, primary sources, like, you really do get the sense that, like, sure, there may be some, like, realpolitik stuff going on, you know, and it's more complex than just, like, zealotry, but, like, there is a lot of zealotry, like, including up in the higher echelon, and it's, like, hard to register, particularly in, like, the modern kind of relatively secular age, at least in, like, Western society, that it I mean, it's not like we don't have zealots within the United States, but I digress. Uh, but that, like, people, like, had this fundamentally, like, different, like, very strong worldview, you know? They didn't understand the sciences we do now, and so I I do it slightly chafes against me. I wouldn't say it's a huge criticism, but I do feel like it is slightly, in my opinion, too cynical that they do not actually carry these beliefs, which I don't know if that makes them any less moral, but it at least makes them have more integrity in a weird way. Although then again, we have Bidithal, who's the absolute scum of the earth. So maybe that's a good transition. I don't know unless you guys have something you want to say about Lorik.
Not Lorik, but I did want to, I don't know, maybe respond to what you said.
Please.
The Um, well, Birathal isn't even a worshipper of Shaik, right? He's a high
Right.
priest of something completely unrelated. But I, I am thinking about this has been referred to as a holy war in this book, or in the
Yeah.
series, what the rebellion is bringing. But and I don't know if this impression is just because of the POVs we are following, but it doesn't feel like a holy war in the sense of I'm bringing my religion to these other lands, or that I'm fighting for my religion over yours. It's it feels to me more of they want to rebel and they have the blessing of their goddess, as opposed to I'm fighting in the name of my religion. Like I want like fighting for the supremacy of this goddess or the religion, if that makes sense. It
Right, it's
she's
political.
Mhm.
It is just like the power struggle, right? And it's not even like power struggle rooted in belief. It's just power.
Right. Yeah. So in that sense, like I guess it feels less cynical to me in that sense, in that it never did pretend to be, other than the name, a holy war in the sense that I think of it. So maybe that's why I'm feeling like it's okay that that they don't have, or at least not that it's okay, but more that I have to think about it differently than I would if this was an army of true believers bringing
Well,
religion to
this
the
is
world.
you made a similar point. I remember when you talked about this previously, and I think it's a great point that like in Dead House Gates, so much of like who tells us it's a holy war are the people from the outside, the Malazans, right? It's not necessarily as much the people inside. We don't really get their thoughts. We don't really get perspectives on the war um, from the rebels. And so, yeah, I mean, you may be absolutely right that it's only a holy war to people from the outside. That said, I don't know. I kind of get the sense that we're meant to think the foot soldiers at least are like zealots, or maybe not. Erikson does. I'm not going to get into details or like clarify anything, but he explores this and the idea of a holy war. I feel like with much more nuance and a much more interesting way in a different book. Um, and it is something that I'm missing in this because I feel like it does flatten the motivations a bit when they're all so I'm like down to have like the kind of realpolitik, materialist sort of power grabbing going on, but I would also like to see like a deeper exploration of the actual like religion and like beliefs that drive this. And he is capable of doing it because again, he does this at a later time. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I'm kind of inclined to believe Karsa on this, that there aren't any that there aren't any like base beliefs that they are fighting for, other than I don't want the Malazans here anymore. But even that is secondary. Like it's not that they hate XYZ things about the fact that the Malazans are their rulers. It's just that they are not the ones in power, and that's what
yeah,
they are fighting against. And and
I
again,
think
like
you're
with
right.
maybe I wasn't like super clear with my point about the holy war, but like I think there's a nuance to just fighting with the blessing of the goddess versus like trying to, well, I don't know if the purpose of the crusades was to spread that religion or to like establish the supremacy of like one variation of a religion versus the other, right? That was it. Do I have
All
it
of
right?
the
Yeah.
above. I mean, it's
Okay.
it was the Crusades started because the I mean, it's complicated. Like I'm gonna inevitably end up simplifying it a bit, but because the like Western and Eastern Christians were threatened, felt threatened by the spread of Islam, and for hundreds of years they had wanted, many of them like the papacy had wanted to reclaim Jerusalem. It's the Holy Land, and so they finally things got to a point where the Pope managed to call a crusade, and they went and started like 200 years of wars, holy wars.
Mm,
Um, and at the time, actually, the reason the Christian invaders like managed to succeed the way they did is because there was so much like infighting among different factions within Islam,
Hmm.
um, or the different Islamic societies, I should say. Um, and so you definitely still had that kind of like. I very much am of the opinion that, of course, inevitably throughout history, even in religious conflicts, a certain level of materialist politics is going to drive things. But I also think that that flattens the motivations of people too much. Like I say this as like a relatively like irreligious person, but it's inevitable, especially when you're talking about 1,000 years ago, that the people who really strongly believe these things are driven to act based off of those beliefs. And
Hmm.
so I just I guess my point is really that I feel like we're missing some nuance here, that would be interesting to explore. Uh, but all that said, I'm with you that like it's not. I think you're right that it is framed as fundamentally about like a war about ejecting the Malazans. Like that's really what it's about, and the inclusion of Shaik and this goddess in the apocalypse is really sort of just like an excuse
Hmm.
to push the Malazans out.
Yeah,
Which you could
I
argue in the
think
Crusades that's even part of the argument of Jerusalem. But I think there are strong religious components to it. Anyway,
hmm.
sorry, Varsha, you were saying.
No, no. Yeah, no, I was saying that that yeah, the goddess's presence is what's giving them strength, but I don't think it's the driving motivation
Absolutely, I agree. I totally
as
agree with
compared to
that.
what you might expect from like a crusades type holy war. Is how I'm thinking about this, but I don't know. Yeah, I think I do see your point. I don't think I ever thought of this holy war in that sense. So I'm not seeing the cynicism, but you may very well be right that if this is in fact a religious war, um, and then the fact that we don't have more associated motivations that aren't just like driven by a struggle for power does make it more cynical than we might think of it.
I guess I'm maybe not like stating my point, or part of my point like very well, that it's not that like, because I agree with you about I think fundamentally what this war is about and what motivates most of the people, most of the rebels. Um, I think just the idea of even like calling it a holy war and the element of religion that does exist, even as just an excuse, as this like kind of whirlwind circling it, if you
Yeah.
will, right, is a missed opportunity to not
Mm,
very seriously explore and, you know, examine those kinds of motivations and how that interacts with these then more pragmatic, power centered motivations. That said, I do think it is an intentional thematic choice
mm,
in many ways. And I don't think it just arises out of kind of instinctive secularism. I think Erikson is trying to make a point. And I think it does
yeah.
relate to Kars's character and everything Kars is thinking in his arc, as you have pointed out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the fact that Karsa sort of came to the same conclusion we did a few weeks ago, that that's all this is. This is just a power struggle and not um no underlying moral principles there, or at least struggle for correct treatment of people.
Right.
I think that that makes it clear that this is a thematic choice. But yeah, I forgot how we got here. So let's see.
We're
Lorik,
just talking about
yes.
Lorik and
Mhm.
Bidithal. Yeah.
Yeah, Benathal,
Which
yes.
Lorik, helps Felison the Younger out after the worst day of her life. So,
Yes.
that's pretty dope. And he thinks about going to kill Bidithal, but she tells him not to in the
Yeah.
most depressing scene to read of all time.
Yes. So she still has need of him is what yeah, and the conclusion that Lorik comes to that she's in pain, but she's still able to think coldly, like h- maintain a distance from what happened to her because she knows that Shaik still needs Birathal. Although what he needs her what she needs him for would be interesting, given just how much of a snake he is. What a terrible person. Yep.
Yeah. That is one of the things I was questioning because we hear that repeatedly that she needs Bidithal. And I guess I feel like maybe even more than the like any sort of forces he brings to the table, I suspect even more than that. Although I'm sure that's part of it, but I suspect even more than that, it's just about the balance of power and that him being there kind of wards off the other snakes around
Mm,
her.
mm,
But I
interesting.
do suspect, I don't know. I think frequently we are invited to question whether these strongly held beliefs, even when they're thought through and seem to have logic, are actually true. Like in the same way that Tavor, her plan to save Felison, ended up creating this monster.
Yeah.
I question whether it's actually necessary to keep Bidithal around.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think we know enough at this point about just what he brings to the table. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we got a little bit of insight into that in these chapters with I think Felicin wants a way to not have her mages be defeated by Tavors or Tartarel. And that's what she sends Heberic off on his Henbara hallucinations, to find, right? And
My God, that was in this chapter too, wasn't it?
yes,
Wow, these really were
it was a
dense.
lot.
Wow. Yeah.
um, I think we're given to understand. I think we can interpret from that she's maybe going to rely heavily on her mages to win this for her, and maybe and it seems that she knows that everybody's going to betray her eventually and is plotting to do that right this moment. But mm, yeah, so I think she needs to win this. She thinks that she needs to win this more than she needs to protect herself from these guys, or maybe she thinks that she knows how to protect herself from them when the time comes, which I'm highly skeptical about, but we'll see. I say that as if I haven't read this book, but some strong emotions have been evoked.
I yeah, I mean, on a related note, I think I very much read Felicin the Elder Shaik's actions here as being apocalyptic, as
Hmm,
like self-destructive. I
hmm,
don't think she's not as outwardly vitriolic as she is in Dead House Gates. You know, she's not as abrasive and just outright mean, but I think she still carries the same self-loathing that led to that behavior, and I think it is motivating the way she's behaving or the actions she's taking, I should say. Like, I think she is intentionally going towards she's driven to hurt herself here, I
hmm.
think. I think she knows. At the same time that, of course, she also wants to hurt her sister, which is the
Yeah.
other major and explicitly stated, driving force for her.
So yeah, that makes sense. Maybe she's not thinking beyond the winning of this upcoming engagement with her sister. Yeah. So
What
mhm.
well, I was just gonna ask, what are your thoughts about like, this is the only fantasy story I've ever read. I'm trying to think if this happened in Baker or not. It feels like the type of thing that would, but the genital mutilation that is done to Felison the Younger, I've never like, it's a real world thing, unfortunately, that is still done and has been done for thousands of years in different cultures around the world, and it's terrible, uh, but it's not something you ever see in fantasy because it is so horrific, and so I'm curious about your thoughts about, like, the inclusion of that and how it's done and everything.
The inclusion of that. Yeah, I think he's going somewhere with that, right? He's trying to make a point about the worst things that people do to each other and
Yeah.
how they are done. I think what made the scene especially terrible, and we'll see something like this in I think book 9, if I remember correctly, about a different thing he explores there,
Yeah.
where the the people who help Pirithol are the other girls that he has harmed in a similar way, and they have deluded themselves that this is good for them, or have convinced themselves somehow, or are maybe even on board with the core slash underlying philosophy of it all, of like why it needs to be done, which Birital states that the goddess won't allow you pleasure. That's why this needs to go, and the harm he's doing in the process, and that's the real world motivation too, right? Like it's abominable
Yep.
that women should experience pleasure, so chop it off.
Yep.
That so so yeah, I think that's the most horrifying part of it all. That a man like Birital exists, yes, it's horrifying, but that he has people who are harmed similarly, um, working with him, helping him. I think that's my biggest takeaway from all of that. And not that it's new, but how much I agree with the the enforcers of the most oppressive things that happen to people are often like the oppressed population.
Right.
And I think it speaks a lot about how easy it is to subvert people like that and get them on the other side. It's so there is this thing. I don't know if you have the equivalent here in the schools. I think it's called hazing for what's done to the freshers. Like in India, it's called
Yeah.
ragging, and it's a whole thing where the, the first year college students, they go through this ritual of being humiliated by the seniors, and and by senior I mean like anyone who's not a first year student, and like that's a
Yep.
thing that's passed on, and the people who do the worst of it were maybe the people who experienced the worst of it in their time. So it's like it's my time now to oppress. So there's that
Absolutely.
element too. um so there's a lot of like psychology in like how all of this plays out. It's like I was oppressed, so I get to oppress others. It's my turn now. My boss was horrible to me, so when I'm boss, I'm going to be horrible to people. So like this sort of passing along of the chain of oppression, I think, is highlighted here, but not quite for the reasons that I'm explaining with like the ragging and hazing of it all. But like I think it's similar. Like I think they come from the same sort of base psychology. Like watching someone else suffer maybe
Absolutely.
eases your own. Um,
The
instead of
sadism.
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I mean,
instead
again,
of
it's power
yeah,
dynamics.
yes. So rather
Yeah.
than giving rise to compassion, it gives rise to something so much worse. And that's what's so terrible about it all. And I
Yeah.
think you asked about the inclusion of it all, the fact that it made me think about all of this, I think is I think it's important.
I
And
do too.
so I appreciate that it's included.
I mean, I'll admit, like my knee jerk reaction to anything like this is that I actually think it's good. Oftentimes, like you can certainly portray things like in better or worse ways, but I have sort of the reverse of the sort of knee jerk reactions you often see on the internet. I don't know if it's because of that I've been exposed to the kind of like the judgment of any portrayal of like certain extreme real world evils, particularly like sexual violence and particularly, I should say, violence of all types against women and girls. But I I think it is important to mention it because it is a real thing, and I think first of all, a lot of people don't know about it, and they don't know it's, like, still being done today, and but beyond all that, I think you're right that it just makes you think, right? And, um, and an aspect of what you have to think about it is, um, beyond all the stuff you were saying, which I agree with 100%, is getting into the house of chains of it all as this worship, quite literally, of suffering. And that's where, beyond
Mm.
just the power dynamics, that there's also this inherent valorization of the idea of suffering, and that suffering is noble and suffering is virtuous. And I think it comes from this idea, like a more noble, I think, a pure idea of like selflessness and being willing to sacrifice for the greater good, so to speak. But like so many noble ideals, it gets perverted into horrible acts of violence and forms of subjugation and just, all the worst things that humans can do to other humans. Or in this case, also magical races can do to everyone. Um, and yeah, I mean, I appreciate its inclusion. I think the scene leading up to it and the scene itself is so like tense. Like it's some of
Yeah.
Erikson's best suspenseful writing. It is just it's classic horror novel. It's terrible. I mean, with you have the slaver whose name I've forgotten, just like he's forgotten his own name,
Yeah.
and he's just so creepy. It's oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
really.
And
I
and
think
you're yelling
excellently
at her
done.
to not trust the guy,
Exactly.
which, by the way, Karsa makes a statement at some point, I think in his chapter, about how it's foolish to keep a prisoner from of like someone who you've defeated. I forget the context in which he says that, but I was like, dude, you did just that, and look what happened to Felicity because of
No,
it.
that's an excellent point. It,
Mhm.
it, it is the continuing cycles of violence and sadism. Carson judges him that way.
Mm.
He does this act of retributive justice against the slaver guy out of this sadistic urge that he wants him to suffer. And it's
Yeah,
the exact same
yeah.
thing that drives Bidithal. And it, I mean, oh man, there's a lot going on there.
There's a
That is a
lot. Yeah.
whole mess.
Yes. And I think it's also, it also hits harder than it does because like, we know that Biridol has it out for her, and he intends some harm, is what we are told. And you think that, he wants to rape her or something. And I think he did do that. I think that's implied. But also the physical harm he caused her besides. I don't think we were prepared for that going into that
No,
scene. And
no,
so when she comes out of it, the emotional trauma that we also already know that she's going to suffer, plus the physical injury besides, I think that just hits on a whole other level.
absolutely. I agree. No, I think it's one of the most impactful and memorable aspects of this particular book, and is something that I think Erikson executes well.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I think it's admirable of him to write about this sort of thing because it is inherently going to be controversial.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, doesn't matter what genre you're writing in, people are going to be upset when they're faced with something so horrible because you're meant to feel bad.
yeah.
Like that's the point. You're not meant to feel good about it, you know?
No,
Like it's meant to make you have a reaction and to think about it, and to grapple with it. Um, because unfortunately, it's very real.
yeah. I'm
On
trying to.
to hope.
Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
No, if you have additional thoughts about that, please. I was going to move on to Hiboric.
Yeah, go on because I think I want to think about what I wanted to say a little
Sure,
bit more. But yeah.
sure. So we get another one of my favorite tropes, which is I'm a sucker for like drug induced, trippy fantasy dreams and things like that. A lot of people don't like these sorts of dreams, although I suspect this one because it's like a lore drop. A lot of people do like it. I can remember reading this scene for the first time and my jaw dropping so hard. I
Hmm.
was like, the Jade Giants are fucking aliens. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And they have a bunch of souls inside them that are trapped inside them. That is insane. It's it's just crazy. I mean, there's just how many fantasy stories have you read that like do this and then also like Erikson incorporates all of these kind of sci-fi ideas and executes them so well so that they work perfectly. I mean, you have these like high-tech zombie dinosaurs. Like that sounds like
Yeah.
something out of a bad pulp sci-fi novel, but like they're badass. Like he
Hmm.
makes it work and they're a rich and interesting race of or species of characters. And same thing here that like he introduces, alternate universes and aliens and uh there's more we can say that I can't talk about because we haven't gotten
Yes.
all the information about them, but uh, it's the cripple god's people. That's what we know. And they were coming
Hmm.
after him and they got trapped in transit into these jade statues that look like giant humans, it seems like.
Mm,
Um,
yeah, misshapen. Some some
yeah.
have their arms and legs cut off. It seems like,
Yeah.
um, and they think that a lot of them have fallen on this realm that our people are on, and Heberick sees so many of them that he thinks if they were as close as they seemed like they might be, it would be impossible for the sky to not be filled with just these
Yeesh.
statues.
That's a hell of an image, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the emotional part of all this, right? The very character-driven part of it that Habork is doing this in, like, depressed resignation because he's like, "Oh, wow. Felison, the girl that I love like a daughter is even she is just manipulating me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even trust her. I'm just a pawn in the games." It's so sad. It's so tragic.
And he finds out that he's maybe a pawn, and I think does he get like marks on his body like
Yes.
Gruntle did by the end of this hallucination session,
His
and
tattoos change. Yeah.
yeah, and his status change, and I think he says something about about I think very similar to what Gruntle said about at least asking for permission before you just take me over or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Treach really doesn't like to ask for permission. And then, yeah, I guess that means, right, we can assume he is the Destriant?
Destriant? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I
He
think
d
so.
he doesn't say that, I believe, but I think that is the safe assumption, right?
Yeah, what are the three kinds again? Mortal sword, which we already know Gruntle is. Um,
And it's the
the
shield one, right?
shield anvil. I
Anvil,
think
yeah.
that's who they went looking for in. No, no, no. Sorry, that's the gray swords for the beasts, not
That's right.
for not for Treach. We don't know who
Yeah,
the
they're the
shield anvil
wolves.
is, but actually, shield anvil is interesting too because they're the ones who sort of take the grief, right?
Hmm,
Which Heberick
true.
could, but
Does
man,
kinda feel
I'd feel so bad for him if he did.
yeah,
So the Destrian is the one who channels the power of the god, I think,
right,
because that's what the Destrian of Fenner used to heal his army.
right.
So
They're
yeah,
like
was
clerics in Dungeons& and Dragons, yeah.
oh interesting.
Um,
Okay.
no, you can, like, very clearly map on the 3 roles. I didn't realize that until this read-through,
Oh,
but you can map them on to, like, 3 D&D classes. It's pretty cool.
interesting. Okay, maybe I'll understand more about what they are if you tell if I
The
learn about the
what I
D&D
can say is
classes.
the mortal sword are like paladins in Dungeons and anyway, this
Okay.
is a whole whole 'nother conversation.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, and you were talking about how sci-fi it all is and how it still works. But yeah, we
Yes,
learn about
yes.
them in the most fantasy way possible, with like Heberick
Exactly,
just
yeah, so
sort of
true.
swimming through space in a Henbara induced days,
I
and
love it.
and also in what I think I have to call typical Erikson style. Like there is these two random uh people stuck in the the statue who are like giving him directions, pointing him somewhere
Oh
and
my
saying,
god,
"Hey,
that
why don't
scene.
you go
Yes.
there?"
That's one of
um,
those really interesting scenes because it first of all, it's hard to tell who's always talking because he doesn't, like, label them a lot of the
yeah,
time, but I've seen people try to, like, analyze and unpack that and try to identify for I can't talk too much specifics, but there's a lot going on there and a lot that's kind of implied, by all those people and what they're talking about.
yeah, yes. So I think Heberick's thread was one of the most non-decipherable ones for me on my first read through. I think
Absolutely.
maybe I'm getting a better picture now, but
Yeah. I I hear you on that, especially well, I won't say more, but
okay, yeah.
yeah, it's trippy and weird, a lot of the stuff that he's got going on.
Yes. And Fine. I think one last thing that happens in this chapter is Lorik calling upon the Queen of Dreams to help
Oh,
find a
that's right.
replacement for the familiar,
Yep.
to now take the place of whatever the topmost person in of the Disleo Sun. And she says she has a candidate, but he won't like it. And
Yeah, that's always a good sign.
that's
I'm excited for that because I don't remember this part
yeah,
of it
me
at
neither.
all. So I'm really excited to see. I suspect this is going to be one of those things that kind of like happens in the background, and you just have to like really be paying attention to catch
Yeah.
it. Uh, like well, we get a little more detail here, but I was going to say like who Traveler is. We're
Yes.
we're basically all but told his name, and I did think that. Sorry, pivoting a little bit, but that it is silly that Cotillion and Amanos do not say his name, considering they're like best buds. We know because they explicitly say that he was like the third in their trio,
Hmm.
and they call him Traveler, I guess, because
Yeah.
to keep the mystery alive.
It's interesting. Like I do think though that once people change their name, it seems to me that people largely stick to calling them that. Although that's not
That's
entirely true with
fair.
Fiddler. But there are some of his old buddies who still call him Strings, or maybe at least in the presence of other people to help keep his anonymity, I suppose. But
Beyond that, I think even in real life, you're right that like if people
mhm.
change their names, like typically, if you like know them well, you'll like slip up,
Yeah,
but generally people are like pretty respectful of that. I find, and so you're right that maybe it's just a matter of like, yeah, dude's going by Traveler now. I guess we're calling
yeah,
him Traveler.
gotta respect that. Yeah, cool. So I think that's everything on this. Do you wanna? Where shall we go next? I think let's just go in order. The next chapter is
Yeah.
the Malazan army,
Yep.
and what
A
happens in
lot
this?
of
Yeah, the
Fiddler being
Kundra.
sad.
A lot
Yes,
of
the Kundral
burnt
burn
tears,
tears. Yeah,
and there. Oh my god, that was such a brilliant, brilliant scene where they come and offer themselves up to be a part of
absolutely.
the army, and then they, well, they're dressed entirely. I don't think I made the connection last time at all with like all the crow regalia they have adorned themselves
Yep.
in,
Yep.
and then they bow down to Tatum, and Fiddler gives him a sign on how to behave at this moment, and that concludes nicely for the guy because now maybe his 300 Wiccan warriors will finally start taking him seriously as a leader because he has 3,000 of the Kundra to lead besides. But yeah, that
That
whole
scene
thing
is so
about,
powerful.
yeah, how they are a changed people now because they thought that they should have stuck with I was going to say Cotillion, Coltane. Um, if they had been there, maybe he wouldn't have died the way he did, and all of their regret arising from that, and the depth of that regret affecting an entire people to the point where there's just like wanderers now trying to find themselves. That
And they tattooed
that's just,
tears on their
yeah,
faces.
just tears on their
Like
faces.
when you make a whole culture goth, that's pretty crazy.
and yeah, no, that's brilliant. And then immediately after that, there's a scene of this carousing and getting
I love
drunk
that.
blind, which
Yeah.
fortunately Fiddler's squad doesn't get because I don't know, they have first watch or something. I feel like he engineered that so that his squad wouldn't get themselves drunk. um, and then oh, and then the scene with the butterflies with Nil and Nether, where they are
That's a
calling
cool scene.
upon Sormoinath, but turns out they call upon some other spirit of the desert, which, interestingly, hates the fact that the whirlwind goddess has taken root in the desert and they want to get rid of it. Uh, Meanwhile, Fiddler, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that my interpretation of that scene was that it was partly Sormo and Nath. It's just that Sormo had been assimilated, into the larger spirit of the land.
Maybe. Yeah, that's possible too. Like, uh,
Because isn't that what
f-
happens to Sormo when he dies, is he gets taken by the butterflies?
yes. Fiddler seems to be very certain that it's not Sormo, but then he also never met him, and maybe it's the desert spirit, which is an amalgamation of all the powerful spirits that died here. So
Right.
maybe you're right. Maybe Somoinath is part of that. He did come when Nil and Nether called, but oh man, they're how sad they were
Yeah, I
when
know.
he did just the children in them are crying. They're like these powerful warlocks, but the children.
When they're described as sulking, it broke my heart.
Yeah,
Gamut's just, like, such an ordinary dude that, like, he looks at them and he just can't help but see kids. I really
yeah,
my first time through, I really did not like, I remember nothing of Gamut, I've gotta be honest, and I'm
yeah.
loving him this time through. Like,
Same.
I really care about him, and I think he's just, like, such a sweet old guy.
Yes. I'm okay. That's interesting because I'm a little having trouble with liking it because
Oh, really?
it I'm reading him too much, like, as a counterpart to to what Heberic was to Felicin.
Oh, that's a great
Um,
point. Yeah,
so I'm feeling like he's maybe presuming a lot about what Tower is thinking and feeling, and like feeling a lot of resentment on her behalf, and also a lot of expectation from her,
absolutely.
which I think is possibly misplaced, even. And so, I mean, I appreciate his concern for her, and I appreciate everything that he's doing, and it's great. Like, I do agree that the default is, oh, what a sweet old man. Except I know how much harm I think Heberic caused for Felicin
Mm,
with all of his judgment and expectation of like how she should be. That
yeah,
I'm like sort of instinctively railing against all of his thoughts about Tavor. Like I
that's
feel like he needs to be more back off a little bit more and let her do her
hands
thing.
off, yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. I I I don't know. I mean, just on an emotional level, I mean, part of what I like about him is that he is, like he doesn't seem particularly, like, overconfident, like, he just seems like he's okay, like, he seems, like,
Mm,
very mediocre, and I like that about him because so many of our characters are, like, very intelligent and competent, and he just seems like kind of a guy, uh, which is why I probably didn't remember him the first time around.
yeah.
Um, you're I mean, that is such an astute observation that he is absolutely the parallel character to Haborg. Like, that's 100% what's going on there. And I completely missed that. I think where I would push back is I think the danger is in thinking that Tavor is like Felicin, when I feel that she is very different, and I actually feel like, well, this is maybe getting into she's such an enigma at this point that it's hard to get into too much detail, but I do think that the sense we get she is very, like, commanding. Like, she, is not afraid to order people around, and so my sense of it is that she if Gamut was getting in the way, she would tell him to get out of the way, and I think as opposed to Felicin who would mock Haboric and say hateful things. Like, I get the sense that Tavor she is just it's so hard to talk about her, but, like, I do think that she is in more control, than Felicin was, and
Oh yeah, I
so
absolutely agree.
yeah.
And also I think they're just in fundamentally different positions, right? Because she is
Right.
in a position of power and Felicin, um I wish I could say the Hindi word that I'm thinking of, but like she's just in such a like desperate position the whole time. So I don't necessarily mean that I think that Gamut will cause her any harm. It's more the I think what I'm reading as, and I could be very wrong about this, as the presumptuousness of it all. You
Sure.
know, like this notion that he thinks he knows what's going on with her, when
The
maybe he really
paternalism,
doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think for me, I find that charming because he's so clearly getting things wrong. Like,
Mm.
I think that's what is like, I find him almost funny,
Mm,
like, where I read him as, like, as a to use the word Steve used to describe Carsa, kind of a goof, where, like, he's very self-serious and brooding, but I also feel that, like, some of what he does is just so, like, obviously incorrect that
mm,
he's kind of funny and charming in that way. Um, but I guess, yeah, just different perspectives on,
yeah.
like, 'cause
Yeah.
I read him the same way. Like, I definitely think he is being presumptuous and is making assumptions that he shouldn't be making. I just find it kind of funny.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to read it because my default reaction is like anger, like dude, just just stop. You don't know enough. so so
Which
who
that's
knows?
valid, that's valid,
one in,
totally
one
valid.
one way of thinking about this invokes anger, the other doesn't. So maybe your way is correct. so um
No,
or
it's not correct or incorrect, I think disliking characters is sometimes just as fun as liking them, so, uh,
yeah,
6 to 1, half dozen another.
true. Very true. So anyway, that scene was very funny with the like especially when it's following immediately after their grief, and I think we're
Yeah.
supposed to think that they're trying to. It's a continuance of their ritual with the butterflies, right? Maybe they, at least that's what I thought, that they think they'll have a better chance of success if they try it like in that river where Sormo died. But the next scene, one of my favorite scenes from the Harry Potter movies is when Harry and Ron are whispering to each other, and then like Snape pulls his sleeves up and then like squishes
Oh,
them into the
yes, it's
desk.
it's so good, yes, yes,
So
absolutely.
yeah, this was a little bit like
Alan
that.
Rickman the Great, yes,
so yeah, he just like pulls them up like by the scruff of their necks, kind of like cats do with their annoying kittens.
absolutely.
So yeah, that was a fun scene. And then yeah, like and to your point, Tavor immediately puts him in his place and says, you know what, next time just have Dean Beralda come to me with his ideas instead of bringing them. Like I don't need a go between. Just just have him talk to me first. So yeah, there is that. I don't think she's going to come to any harm by him because like he's he like she's quick to stop him when he acts on her behalf. And yet, and yet,
And yet,
so
I on a related note, he explicitly Gambit explicitly calls Tavor the mother of the kinda, like, adopted mother of these warlocks, but also really, like, the army at large,
hmm,
which I think is very interesting,
hmm.
associating her with this, like, maternal figure. I mean, that sort of makes Gambit like the grandpa, I guess, um, or at least he feels he's kinda like a grandpa and, like, sometimes dealing with the unruly kids, I guess. And it makes me wonder who the, like, father figure, if there is one, is for this. Like, I don't Admiral Knox seems, like, too far off. Is there if Whiskey Jack was still around, I'd be like, "Obviously Whiskey Jack," but Whiskey Jack ain't here anymore.
I'm I'm thinking the Marines, the veterans in this,
Yeah.
like Fiddler and
Strings.
Gessler and
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
true.
all of
True, true, true.
those. Yeah.
Don't they even call actually, isn't there some point where they call, like, Stormy and Gessler, like, the uncles, like, the drunk uncle, or was that one of us who said that?
That's what,
There was, like, some
maybe.
comment, I forget, uh,
That's cool
and
though.
then it was, like,
I like
referring to, like, Fiddler as, like, a more father figure, and the others, yeah, Stormy and Gessler is, like, the crazy uncles. Um, anyway, or
Yeah.
maybe I don't remember, somewhere I
Yeah.
saw that.
The and then we have a Sapper scene. Well, I think
Love
I love
sappers.
every discussion of the sappers of the Malazan army. First, they say when Tavor says, "Go bring the sappers and some munitions." They're like, "The sappers will weep because we're gonna use their munitions." And then we cut to Fiddler and Cuttle waiting far too long. before the explosion goes, and then thinking that maybe they should have used one fewer cussor.
Yeah.
And then someone comes and mouths off at them and says, "What's the point of building up a like nice explosion if you're not going to be able to, if you're going to keep have your face in the mud when it goes off?"
So
So
true. Great point.
it's like a fireworks display for them, and they weren't there to see it because they were too busy running away from it.
I love the sappers.
Yeah.
They're like Looney Tunes.
Yes.
It's delightful.
So, which brings us to the whole thing about Fiddler. He wanted to run away, but he didn't because one, the desert
Yep.
spirit told him he should. But what led him to that desert spirit and Nilan Nether's ritual in the first place was that he's been hearing this song that he thinks is coming from over there. And when he goes
Yep.
to listen to it, when he goes closer, it turns out that it's not Nil and Nether singing, but it is a song. I think we know, and I don't know if I think Fiddler knows now
We know.
that
We know.
that's the Tano Spirit Walker's song
Yep.
that's supposed to bring about the ascension of the bridge burners. So he needs to go, and as a segue into the next chapter, Kalam's hearing that song too. He thought it was Mogora singing. Iskar Alpas tells him categorically that his wife does not know how. And um,
I
so
I I I like, about that, well, about the song in
Mhm.
Fiddler, I think it's really interesting and neat storytelling to just potentially have all of that storyline come full circle with Fiddler, where he was the one who kind of earned this ascension for the whole group of bridge burners by doing the one act of kindness for what's his name? Kimlock? Is it Kimlock? Yeah. Um, and so the idea of then him being the one that kind of complete the full circle journey is it's neat. It's a nice it fits tight like very very tidily together. Um, I like it.
yes, and we were talking last time about like circular narratives and how cool those are. So yeah, I love this, and I thought Strings would have to bear the entire burden of this, but Kalam's got it too. He also needs to go back to Raraku. Um, Shadow Throne and Cotillion seem to be interested in his return to the desert,
Yep.
but it's unclear at this point whether it's the ascension of the bridge burners they're interested in or something else altogether, and those two purposes just happen to converge now.
Shadowthrone also has his own plans. We
Mm.
find out that he's finally going to tell Cotillion about, um, and he
Oh,
gave
that's
some
right.
like some diamonds, was it, to
Yes.
Kalam,
Yes.
which we haven't seen yet, I don't think. So that's Chekhov's gun, well, Chekhov's
Hmm.
diamonds, if you will. We'll wait to see what happens there. I do not remember it at all.
We did know that he used one of the diamonds to bring demons uh,
Okay, so he
into
did. So
this
he has
world.
started.
That's
Okay.
that's how the Azalan demon is it? How I don't
Yeah.
know how to say it. Yeah. So so that was past misdirection on how to enter the whirlwind. He brought Kalam in by hiding him inside that giant demon.
Hell yeah.
um, so yeah, that's interesting. If I had to guess, I don't remember what happens with the diamonds, just like you. But if I had to guess, I'd say maybe he's supposed to release demons at some point to defeat the army of the apocalypse, which is interesting because we kind of know so far that Shadow Throne is working against the Empress. So is he helping
Yep.
her now? But yeah, lots of
I
questions
I
there about their motivations. But,
there are certain things about their larger plans that I am following and understanding much better now,
hmm,
and larger plans in general. This is one where I'm a little bit confused, and I'm excited to see where they're
yes.
going. However, the one thing I do feel confident about is they are at this point, the whirlwind is being subtly manipulated by the crippled god. This was
Yeah.
true in Dead House Gates. There's some implication that he was encouraging and empowering the rebellion. And so I think it's not so much as helping Lysine as maybe thwarting the crippled god's ambitions.
Hmm.
And the best chance they have of doing that is through the Malazan Marines, who, of course, they'll naturally have some affection for being, the people they are.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe they're trying to thwart the ambitions of the crippled god. Um, yeah, I think in this chapter we sort of check in on all of our other threads that we didn't
Yeah.
touch upon in the previous three. So from Kalam, if I remember correctly, we move on to Pearl and Lostara. Um,
Love their dynamic.
yes,
They
absolutely.
argue like an old married couple, and they've known each other for like 2 weeks. I love it.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
argue almost like Megora and Iskarl Plus.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's wonderful. Except actually, Pearl does shut up when Lostarkiel tells him to shut up,
That
and
is
then he
true.
makes puppy dog eyes at her.
I don't think Pust knows how to shut up.
No, it's impossible. He just cannot like physically do that.
Yeah, I think his head would bust if he tried. So, okay, I was wrong. It's not Pearl and Lostara, but since we started, we can finish that before we come back to Cutter and Cotillion. Um,
Uh,
yeah, so they find Bowden's dead body, in as much as you can call it that. So they're tracing. Oh, this was something I wanted to bring up, but between the revisit of the Vather crossing and then the revisit of Karsa with Icarium and then the Relandris encounter, and then this where they are sort of retracing Felison's footsteps. We are revisiting a lot of territory that we did in Dead House Gates, with sort of like tracing it backwards in some sense. And I
yeah.
absolutely love that, and I feel like that needs to have some sort of thematic relevance too. But I can't quite put my finger on it. But I'm following it now. I'm looking for more things like that now. It, it's very interesting that we're doing that. I mean, I guess it sort of makes sense just by default that it's happening because, especially with the Tavor walking in Cotillion. Why do I keep doing this? Coltane's footsteps in reverse. Um,
I also like mix up those names all the time. It's Erikson. He's really done us dirty with these.
but yeah, I mean, I think there is some that just happens by default, but I feel like there's also a lot of milking it for a theme, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it. I said it like I think it's a bad thing, but I love what we're doing here, and maybe it ties a little bit back to the circular narrative and like coming back to where we started of it all.
The whirlwind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whirlwind's one
Yeah.
big circle.
Mm. Yeah,
So
that too.
there's
Yeah.
definitely some symbolism going on there.
Mm-hmm. And Strings is coming back to Raraku, I
Yeah,
guess, to find himself again, and yeah. So yeah, I
absolutely.
love those
Absolutely.
elements in the story. Anyway, so Bowden, he's basically a husk, but Pearl thinks that Hood came physically to take him, and that there is now a new member in Hood's house, which Bowden must play some role in, which is interesting. Had no memory of
This is
that
news.
whatsoever, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, that he is was an acolyte of Hood. I
Hmm.
don't believe we knew that before this.
Wait, did we know that he was already an acolyte, or that he became one after his death?
I thought what Pearl said was that Hood came for his own guy,
Oh, I thought
but
he came
maybe I
because he was cool.
misread that or misremembering. I mean,
No,
that's
you're
also
probably
fair,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but I
I
mean, everything else you said is right. That like, yeah, now he's elevated to this new position, and the implication is that he is ascended and alive,
Yeah, came to
or
take.
actually, maybe not alive, but he is functioning in the mortal realm.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think so I read this as you know what happened with that other tableau that Kalam found, where the beast gods just appropriated him for a member of their
Yes.
house. I thought something like
Yep.
that happened here, like who had thought the guy was oh so cool because of what he did. And then like that led to his ascension of sorts. Mm.
It's certainly not beyond the gods to do that. So I
Mhm.
mean, that's that's fair.
So it says the god was here, came to take this man, not just his soul, but also the flesh. So yeah, I didn't get the impression that he knew him before, but I could be wrong about that. I didn't remember any of this. So, um, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. Um,
cool. So what was your topic again? Lorik. We already talked about that. Okay, so
yeah, we
just
talked about
mine was
Lorik.
left, but we're coming to that. Okay. So anyway, they are hot on the trail of Ellison. They realize that she's made it into the whirlwind, except I don't think they've realized yet that she is Shaik herself. Oh, and Shannon is back. Yay.
We come full circle.
Excellent.
I
Yes.
had a feeling you guys were still gonna keep me going.
Yes.
Yeah, but there's a lot
Yeah,
to talk
these
about, a
chapters
lot to cover.
had a lot. We've just gotten to chapter 16. We finished talking about Tavor and her people and all of that. And now we are on to Cotillion and Cutter. Each finding a woman that's injured and doing something about it, which I think Cotillion points out the parallel. Like, first, Cotillion finds who he names Hall, the mage who was with Traveler's group. Turns out she was a former Talon, and so and Cotillion's friend, former friend, and he's feeling very bad that they did not reveal to her that they were still alive. So she like sort of just disappeared and didn't reveal to them where she was. And anyway, he's like picked her up and trying to take her somewhere, I guess maybe to give her a good burial. And Cutter, meanwhile, is holding Upsala. And Cotillion points out, he says, look at us, as if like they're both doing similar things. And Cutter sort of objects to that comparison that Cotillion is drawing, which is interesting. What do you think about that he's objecting to?
I mean, I definitely think that Cutter views Cotillion rightfully as a manipulative asshole. I mean, this is the guy who possessed Sari, right?
Yeah.
So I think he holds a grudge and he doesn't want to, like, in my mind, Cotillion is very much like, hey, look how, like, he's like trying to bond
Mm.
with Cutter. You know, he's like, we're just two guys being dudes. Look at us, you know, and Cutter's like, no, we're not. Like an angsty teenager, you know. He's like, you're actually a weirdo and a pervert, and I want nothing to do with you. I mean, I'm obviously exaggerating, but I
Yeah.
think it's like a similar sentiment.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I think just having any comparison drawn to him being similar to what's his name, Cotillion, is what he's railing against, perhaps. Anyway,
And,
go
well,
ahead.
and this gets down to the deeper, like, this Cutter, the whole character of Cutter is such obviously a mask, and that he's like, it's not who he is.
No.
Like, it's just not. And the comparison to Cotillion is further evidence of that, that he rejects it, you know, that he refuses, because he's right, that they are very different people in a lot of ways. And he is not an assassin. And he doesn't share all these traits with Cotillion. And maybe they have some similarities, but he's just so not what he's trying to be.
Yes. Yeah, and I think he's entirely in it for Upsala. Like,
100%.
yeah, I think
He's
she,
the ultimate simp.
yeah, she says, I don't like this for you. I don't want you to do this. And he's like, well, don't you want some company?
Yes.
So,
My
And
poor boy.
something I thought was neat was Cotillion taking Hall, um, and wanting to take her body to go bury it or something. Like
That's
we have this
true.
kind of continuation of humanizing him.
I agree.
Um,
It's
you know,
very
he started
touching.
out as this, dark god that killed a whole town of people for really no reason, back in Gardens of the Moon, and now, just more and more we keep kind of, and I think it's interesting because I feel like Erikson dumps all the humanity onto Cotillion, but not Shadow Throne.
yeah,
Like we still don't really know Shadow Throne much about him at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Honestly, I think the only human moment we've seen of his so far is when he shows up here and he's not giggling right away, and because Hall is dead. And
Yeah.
I I wonder if it's I'd be curious to talk to Erikson about this. If that is the humanizing Cotillion and still keeping Shadow Throne at a distance is down to the nature of their characters that like Co- uh maybe Cotillion is a little more like sympathetic inherently, or maybe it's he's trying to keep Shadow Throne mysterious because Shadow Throne is really mysterious. He's a wild card. He's
Mhm.
hard to read. And so in that way, getting in his head and humanizing would maybe weaken that element. Or if it's just
hmm,
down to the fact that Cotillion was the character Erikson played, so he knows him better and he
interesting.
Well,
maybe is more attached to him. I don't know. Shadow Throne was Esselmont,
yeah.
So,
an
Oh,
NPC
okay.
technically because Esselmont was running the game,
hmm,
but it is
Huh.
Cotillion. Yeah, was like Erikson's one of his big
Well,
major
I do
characters.
think it's absolutely on purpose because it's the same thing he's doing with Tavor,
hmm.
where
Exactly.
he
Right.
keeps us at arm's distance from Tavor at all times.
Right. Absolutely.
For you've both read some Esselmont books, right? Did you read the
Yep.
ones
Hmm.
with with Shadow Throne? Sorry, with Dancer and what's the other guy's name?
I've read the
Kellenbed?
first.
The Path
Yeah,
to
the Path to
Ascendancy
Ascendance.
books.
Yeah.
I have not read those yet.
Oh, neither of you have read them? Okay. I was gonna ask,
I've read the first one.
okay, how does their portrayal compare to Shadow Throne, Cotillion? Like, is there a correspondence, or
You
are they just completely different as humans?
There are notable differences. I mean, first of all, the series starts when they're young.
Mm,
So
Hmm.
they're not like tiny children, but they are not the people, the gods we know, right?
Yeah.
mm,
They haven't founded an empire. Like that's the whole point, right? Is it's tracking their rise to power. Um, I would say we haven't been given their original names yet, so I'm not going to name them as that. But Cotillion and Amanas definitely share traits. There is some continuation throughout it. I would say Amanas is more similar to how
mm,
he is in the past. And
Hmm.
what you may
Okay.
find interesting is Esselmont writes from the perspective of Cotillion
hmm.
and not Amanas.
Interesting.
Amanas is kept at arm's length. Again, because I think it's because he's the schemer and you risk giving away a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His character's all about misdirection, illusions, right? While
Hmm.
Cotillion as an assassin is just fundamentally a little more straightforward.
Yeah.
That's not to say he doesn't have depth. He has a lot going on, but he's not he has schemes too, but it's not the same level, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. Another thing that I was surprised to learn, I don't, I forget at what point in this book, but that Kellenwood used to be a mage, a very powerful mage of some sort. I think
Of Mianis. Yeah.
Mianis. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
I
that
mean
was surprising. I
still
didn't
is.
remember that. Yeah. Hmm?
Yeah, yeah. I mean he still is. Like that's why
Hmm.
he's the god of
Right.
illusions and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, but I didn't remember that he had magic before the
Oh, okay,
ascendancy.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They're
anyway.
very much like kind of the like muscle, like the mind and muscle,
Hmm.
brains and brawn.
Yeah.
I feel. I mean, Cotillion is intelligent, but that's sort of the dynamic a little bit
Yeah. So the task that Cotillion has for Cutter is apparently to find the head of the Talon and find out what the heck they are up to. Which the
Hmm.
Talon was Cotillion's army, but it seems that they're not happy with what they're doing right now, and so yeah,
Yep.
that's the adventure that Cutter is on
Yeah.
currently. We don't know who the head of the Talon is, do we?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
remember either. But mm, and then after that,
No.
yeah, talked about Pearl and
Actually, I
Lystra
actually asked
already.
that
Mhm.
question today in the
Oh,
forum, in the spoiler forum.
okay.
I was
Yeah,
like,
Did
where
we
is
did
this
you
though?
land?
Yeah.
well? I mean, I know of a Talon that we learn about later on in the series. I'm like, is this the head of? I don't know. Like,
Okay, yeah,
I
that
don't
was
know. I
kind
don't
of on
remember where this
an
goes.
yeah. I think I'm taking some notes for our end of book full series spoiler discussions. I'm
Hmm.
gonna add this to the list. Um, but yeah, I think what's next is Onrak and Trull, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
The painting, that whole section was so beautiful. Uh, First of all, how he talked
Yeah.
about what paintings do, like freezing people in time, and the punishment that he had to suffer because of it. With Because he chose to dream, chose to be separate, chose to be
Yeah.
different from the rest of the Imas, and within the Imas, being different was one of the biggest crimes you could commit, and so he got punished for that, and he was about to be banished, except the ritual was conducted that same night, and we find like the whole yearning quality of his affection for Kilava, and we find out more about her. I think the only oh no, we've met Kilava a few times in Memories of
Hmm.
Ice,
Yep.
but
Yep.
but we learn Tool's reaction to Ono's Tulan at the time, his reaction to the painting, how that was described. Um, it was all so beautifully done. And like this little memory trip that Onrak has, and the idea that he's only remembering it now because he um, is cut off from the rest of the Imas. So he's now allowed to have memories again. And this has slight echoes of what we get at the end of Memories of Ice, where the Imas that
Hmm.
Itkovian, um, I don't know what's the verb form,
Redeems.
redeems. Thank you. Is like there's little snippets of memory that we get of all that they lost when they participated in the ritual. It almost feels like, Onrak had a better time of it than they did because he was about to be banished, and now he gets to be undead forever. So, but
It,
mhm,
there's an interesting bit to like how the ritual works too that we get here that we hadn't had spelled out before, which is that it actually burns away their individuality, and that
mm,
it's only when they're separated that they're able to get those memories back and to become more whole individuals again. And so
mm,
that it kind of explains why
Um,
their genocide worked out the way it did and why there's
yeah,
so little like pushback was because they all, I mean, we talked about this in previous episodes that they're like kind of the ultimate, like if the Jagged are the ultimate individualists, they're the ultimate like communalists.
mm,
And this is like the literal, like taking that magical metaphor, and making it real. And I had completely missed that before, that they were all like
hmm.
part of a hive almost, that they
yeah,
could literally hear each other's thoughts and that they were compelled in ways that were not inherent to their nature. They weren't just like all deciding to
Yeah.
do it, that they were like driven by the ritual. Certainly they had to agree to the ritual in the first place, but still like there's additional nuances here that we had lost.
I don't even think they had to agree to the ritual because Kilava had to fight her entire family to opt out. And she had to kill them all to decide
Right.
she didn't want
Yeah.
it. Like when she decided she didn't want it. And she had to like leave. And I think the only
Yeah.
reason she even got away with it probably is that she's a bone caster herself. Good luck to any
Yeah.
non-bone caster Imas.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't as voluntary as they made it sound.
yeah.
No. No. Yeah, it's like conscription, right? It's like you're part of the community, you're gonna do this thing. And then once you do it, you're gonna like it.
Yeah. So
Well,
mhm,
one thing I thought about that whole sequence was, they make such a big deal about this picture. He drew this picture of her, and he's even focused on it. Maybe this is why she did what she did, is because I'd already made her immortal by doing this picture. And the whole time, I just wanted to like shake him and be like, "But dude, you cheated on your wife.
yeah.
Why are you
Yeah.
blazing right over that and pretending like that's not part of this?"
Yes.
And Troll is the one that has to like bring that up to him, be like, "So wait, this wasn't your wife? This is just some other girl?"
And he heard footsteps at night. Just putting that out there. When he
Yeah.
was busy sleeping with Kilava, he heard some
Well,
footsteps.
Well,
That's
I
that's all.
I I think there's an important thing to note here too. It is ambiguous who he sleeps with.
That's true. Yes.
He
I
does
thought
not
it was
see her.
Kalava.
He does not
Oh,
see
okay.
her,
He does not
but
see her.
Well,
it
he
is
but
in the
it, at the
darkness.
he was still in love with Kalava. Like he still,
Yes.
even if
No,
he
no,
didn't
that
sleep
that
with her.
yes. Yes. But I think that is n I'm not gonna say why, but I think it's noteworthy that there's ambiguity there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that I love all that stuff. I think Anrak is such a complex, fascinating
Mhm.
character. I mean, you have to like him. I mean, even when like, yeah, like he cheated on his wife, that's terrible. But this dude is just like so he just clearly feels very deeply
Mhm.
and is fighting that every step of the way and is unusual for a lot of IMAS in that regard. And um I also think the metaphor, to talk about another metaphor, the symbol of the painting making her immortal, I wasn't sure whether to read that literally or not. Like, is that literally the source of her immortality? Because she didn't
I
follow
took
the
it as a
ritual,
cultural
so is
thing.
that why? I also wasn't sure if, like, yeah, is it just in an in-world metaphor, or is it also actually magically powerful? I think beyond that, to
I
get
mean, she
to
is still alive after like a
right,
millennium, and
exactly.
she's not undead.
Exactly. Like the Imass aren't
So,
naturally immortal, so he might have through his love for her or his obsession as he called it, made her ascend. I don't know. I don't remember if
huh?
we find out specifically or the origins of her immortality or what, but it's not the ritual. Uh, I mean, she doesn't look undead. She looks like a normal Imass.
Yeah.
And I I think it's also interesting, Varsha, I think you touched on this, that the idea that ascendancy freezes the person in time. It is like this arrested development. It's like celebrity. You know, you often hear that like celebrities
Mhm.
stop aging mentally once they
Mm,
become celebrities. Uh, and it kind of is like the same thing, the implication with ascendancy that like once you rise to godhood, you stop changing. Or that's the
mm,
question, right? Is can you change? Or are you frozen in place as the person you were at the moment of ascension? I think that's very interesting.
hmm. Yes, I like that interpretation. I thought Kilava was immortal because she's a soul taken, but I guess it's unclear how long soul taken live, whether they are immortal. Can we interpret that they are? I don't know. Mm,
I don't know if all Soul Taken are, but you might be right. I mean, that's the thing about this is immortal. Like so many people become immortal, or like ascendancy. It's not clearly defined, so it's like
yeah,
hard to really, unless we're explicitly told, you know, like with the ritual or just the race is inherently.
yeah.
Are there any races that are actually immortal? Maybe the Jagged, but
The
even then, I'm not
I
Tistandi,
sure
think
if
that
they just age.
I
They're
think the
not
Jag does.
inherently because
or
like
they just have
the
long
Tais.
lives.
They are when they're immortal, it's because of magic. That wasn't clear before this book, but that's
Hmm.
one of the things we learn in Drift of
Oh,
Volley
that's right. Yeah.
is they do age. They just age much more slowly than humans
Mhm.
age.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. But you bring up a great point about just what ascendancy means about your changeability. I think that that is a very interesting exploration. I don't remember if we get one of those, but like, does immortality force you to change, or do you stay the same forever? And which of it is more depressing?
Yeah. Right, that's a great question. It's an interesting, yeah, interesting idea.
Yeah. I think that's everything. And yeah, at last we come across those Tistlio-san jerks again, and they think they have someone in this realm who can help them. I wonder if they mean Lorik, but oh no no no,
Oh, and the
sorry, no, they mean they've spelled it out. They mean Ikariam, the maker of time.
yes, they're gonna go visit Ikariam. They also, it's interesting, they reference, um the Talani Mass as the stealers of fire, which is an interesting reference to the myth of
Oh,
Prometheus.
mm,
Fire is knowledge, right? And that's I don't know. I thought that was neat. I hadn't caught that before.
yes, that's great. I didn't. Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't think of that. Okay, are we ready to do quotes, or are there any topics that we did not cover?
I can't think of any
Yeah,
topics.
We did. I think we did a pretty thorough job, despite how
Yeah.
just how much was packed in these chapters. Um, okay, I just have one because it's so beautiful. I don't want to add any more to my list, but it's on Rack when he says, "When memories have returned, Tralsengar, solitude is an illusion. For every silence is filled by a clamorous search for meaning." That's all.
That's lovely.
Do you guys have
This
any
Erikson
others?
guy, he might be pretty good at writing. I don't
I
know.
don't. Yeah, starting to think
Maybe
that myself.
Yeah.
maybe you should think about doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let me see. I really liked um some of the discussion between Gamut and what's his name? The chieftain of the Burnt Tears, when they were talking about I don't believe in destiny, and and the chieftain was saying, like, he was talking about how history repeats and you look back and
Oh, that was
Oh yeah,
great.
that was
Yes.
brilliant. Yeah.
That was an
yeah.
awesome conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, I when
And then
after I'd stepped away, I thought about it. That's what I really want to talk about tonight.
Yes.
Was that conversation? 'Cause I thought it was just so brilliantly put. Trying to find it real quick, but I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's
just the way they talked about that, that was great.
Yes.
yeah, the implication that, like, a big part of how their seers tell the future is by understanding the past is just such an
Hmm.
awesome idea, that, the
Yeah,
past is the key to understand the future. It's just oh,
and I think there's a truth there. I think it's
absolutely.
true.
Yes.
If you understand your past, you'll understand your future.
Absolutely.
The Condor grunted patterns, the lifeblood of the shamans, but not them alone. Yes, the deck of dragons. Are they not used for divination? But yeah, he's talking about patterns here. The past is all patterns, and those patterns remain beneath our feet, even as the stars above reveal their own patterns. For the stars we gaze upon each night are not but an illusion from the past.
Yeah.
So yeah, just all of that. I thought that was a great speech.
Yeah. I love that.
Gall, Gall. His name's Gall. There we go. I should probably remember that name.
Goal. Yeah. Would serve you well. So, I wanted to bring up again the fact that this section is called Something Breeds. I think we are one chapter away from finishing this section, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have any
Hmm.
more clues to what is the something that breeds? Breathes. How do you guys say it? that it does
Breeds. Yeah, yeah,
breeds. I feel like it sounds like breeds when I say it. Anyway. Uh,
yeah. I yeah, I have no idea. I'm glad you brought that back up. I'd have to think about it. I have no idea.
okay.
Something breeds.
Yes. We'll come back to it next
Um,
week after the
I
yeah,
mean, a
last
next
lot of
week we
chapter.
gotta
somethings breathe.
See if
I
we
don't
know
know.
after
any more.
chapter 17. We'll see if
Yeah.
we can figure what was it that started breathing.
Yeah. I'm inclined to think a little bit maybe the desert itself. Like the
Yeah.
that that desert spirit that came and told Fiddler just how unhappy it was with the whirlwind's presence there. I wonder
Yeah,
if it's the desert that's sort of rising up against the whirlwind now. I
Hmm.
don't-
That's
Or
an
maybe
interesting
it's the
idea.
song. It's the Spirit Walkers song. There was quite a bit of focus on that in a couple of these
in that
chapters.
chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was because yeah, both Kalam and Fiddler are fulfilling part of it and
Yeah.
hearing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that
Breathes.
whole thread. I am absolutely in love with it when it started and now this. But yes, anything else before we wrap up? Okay, then thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week with the next 3 chapters, which brings us to the end of chapter 19. Yeah, and as always, if you'd like to join us for this reading group, please check out the Patreon forum. We have threads there. If you're reading along with us, we do often chat about what's happening in each of these chapters. We'll see you soon. Bye.